Okay. Nikki, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear
Awesome.
me?
Absolutely.
Okay. You got my email?
I did. It sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
Hello,
Hi.
Amanda.
Hola,
Hola.
¿cómo está usted?
Bien. That's it. No more. No más.
Okay. Jessica, you ready for us to get started?
Yes, I was just going to put that in the chat box.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time today. Today we are going to have our UAT kickoff. This is called User Acceptance Testing for our ECM project. My name is Nikki Floyd. I am the project manager at Exponent, and I am located in the Dallas metro area. And then we'll just quickly introduce the Exponent project team members on the call today. Laurel.
Hello, everybody. My name is Laurel Curran, and I am a senior consultant with Exponent. I've been working with your team over the last year, and I'm very excited to show you the system we've created.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kat Evers. I'm a consultant at Exponent Partners as well. I've been working closely with Laurel and Joel and the team, and I am located in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Great, thank you. And just some quick housekeeping rules. Our meeting is being recorded. We will send out the recording with closed captioning and provide the link to AIDB after today's call so that you all can have this internally for reference. I am asking all participants to please turn off your videos so that the only video that we see is a sign language interpreter's video. I'm asking all participants if you would please mute so that we only hear the presenter speaking. And if participants do have questions, we're asking you to drop those questions in the chat function on the Zoom. You should see that at the bottom of your screen, chat. And then we will address those questions as they are submitted. And then I have Joel and Jessica and Kat helping me monitor those questions as they come in. Is there anything else, Joel or Jessica, that we should cover as far as housekeeping?
I think we're good.
Great.
Same.
And then I'll kick it over to Jessica and Joel. They'll give a brief introduction about our project and AIDB's goals for a new system.
Okay, great. I'll start off, Joel, if that's okay. I want to ensure that I give kudos to our fabulous team, Joel Stevens, Susie McCullough, Jared Edison, Doug Nixon, Bradley Hurd, all of whom who've been involved in this initiative, this project. And as each of you were coming on screen, I couldn't help but smile and think there's no one I would rather be doing life with, if you will, work life, AIDB life, than each of you. You guys are the very best. You're going to share your expertise. There'll be opportunities for improvement. There'll be things that you love. And so we're just really, truly excited that you're part of this. You know, we've not had a new data system, if you will, for 15 or 20 years. So to say this is revolutionary may be a bit much, but it's something that's really going to change the dynamic of every single thing that we do here. It's going to collect the data that we need, show where there's service gaps, etc. So I could not be more excited that we're at this point, and I can't wait for your feedback. And thank you in advance for all your hard work that's going to result in just a beautiful system that we'll all be pleased and proud to use.
Yes, I can't top that. Of course, Jessica is so eloquent, but I am excited too, just to have my new family ECM meet, you know, the AIDB group. We are all very excited about this, and really, you know, looking forward to where this takes us. You know, what we're doing now is going to pay off in the long run. You know, it is a lot of work initially, and this is not a locked in system. You know, this is going to grow with us. So we're really embarking on something really, really great. So I'm appreciative of everybody in this call taking the time, because I know we're all very busy. So, you know, I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to let Nikki get us going so we can all get busy and look at the new system. So thanks again, guys.
Great, thank you. And then I'll turn it over to Laurel and Kat, who will lead us through the rest of our presentation today.
Thank you, Nikki and Joel and Jessica, for your comments. I'm going to quickly just give an overview of the process that's led us to this point, and then Kat will take us through some common terms and definitions and introduce us to the system. So our project over the past year has gone through a couple of important phases, the first of which we called discovery. During discovery, we looked at a lot of pictures of your old system. We reviewed a lot of source documents, and we met with various members of your team across all of your business areas. We met with some representatives from regional centers. We met with specific practitioners in adjustment and AT, nurses, etc. And we worked with all of them to deeply understand your processes and come up with a design for the new system. That led us into designing the system, in which we continue to work with a core team at AIDB to really lay out all of the features that you'll see today. So after designing the system, we built it and did some initial testing with the core AIDB team to get it ready for what we now call user acceptance testing. And during this phase, we look forward to hearing some of your feedback as you get to test and play around in the system. So with that overview, I will hand it off to Kat, while also mentioning that after this comes training and go live, which will happen in the new year, when all of your users will be trained and the system will be rolled out across the organization. So with that, Kat, take it away.
Great, thanks, Laurel. So the first thing that I'm going to start by explaining is, what is Salesforce? So Salesforce is a customer relationship management tool. In AIDB's case, it is a consumer relationship management tool. Basically, it will be a database of all of your consumers. It will house all the information on your consumers, including demographic information, any interactions you have with the consumer, any assessments you conduct, and things like case notes. All of that will be entered into the new system. Salesforce is available as long as you have an internet connection and a browser. So it will be accessible to you as long as you have those two things. We do want to mention that the best performance for Salesforce is in Firefox or Chrome. And I saw a question in the chat already, but what is ECM? So ECM is Exponent Case Management. It is an application built by our company, Exponent Partners. It's built on the Salesforce platform, and it includes specific tools for case management and service delivery. So as Laurel said, what Exponent Partners has done is we have custom configured ECM for AIDB's services and requirements. And we've also done some additional custom development for AIDB's specific processes, like contract service requests from ADRS. So for the next week, you will be testing the various processes that we have configured for your system. We have created videos as well as written guides to instruct you during testing. And I am now going to share my screen. So this spreadsheet, everyone will have access to after this video call. Not every test user needs to complete every process listed here. You should coordinate with your team leads who are Joel, Jared, and Susie to determine which processes to test. And you can see here that there are links to the written guides as well as video links if you prefer to watch a video. When you are testing, we will ask that you do 4 main things. So the first is to confirm that you are able to capture all of the data that you need with the right level of accuracy. Ensure that you have, the second is to ensure that you have access to the records that you need. The third is to report any feedback on the user experience. And the fourth is to ensure that you are able to complete each process from end to end. Now, when you are testing, you will inevitably encounter some error messages. Hopefully, most of these error messages will be intentional. For example, if you didn't fill out a field that is required, you should receive an error message. When you receive an error message, please make sure that they are clear and that you are able to resolve the error based on the message. If not, that is feedback that we would like to hear. If there are error messages that prevent you from moving forward in the process and you can't resolve the error message on your own based on the information, that's something that we want to hear sooner rather than later so that we can ensure that you are able to continue testing. So if you do encounter that error message, please let your team leads know. They will notify us and we will work to resolve that as soon as possible. Otherwise, any other feedback will be incorporated once testing is completed next week. I'm just going to check the chat quickly to make sure there are no questions. Okay, great. You are going to be using this feedback sheet, which is linked in all of the guides to report any feedback. You are going to add a date. So for example, I will add today's date. And you'll select an object or location. The record type and field, just be as descriptive as possible if there's a specific field that you're working on or a record type that you selected. Please indicate that. Describe the problem. Please change to Alabama Institute. When you are describing the problem, please also write as much information as you can. You can provide a URL or a link in the next cell. And then finally, just enter your name for the person who recorded this feedback. Joel and the other team leads will be reviewing all of this feedback before sending it to us to make sure that there are no duplicates and that any training issues are removed prior to sending to us. All right, so now I'm going to give you a tour of what it will look like when you log into Salesforce. We will be doing all of our testing in what's called a sandbox, which is a testing environment. So any data that you enter will not affect your production or live environment. There are a few additional terms that we will use throughout the guides and the videos that we want to review with you all today so that you know what we're talking about when we make certain references. We will refer to the Adult Services Program occasionally. This is the name that Jessica and team have chosen for all of the work that you do within your program. And when I first log into Salesforce, I land on the home page. So the home page has a dashboard. Currently, the dashboard is the Adult Services Weekly Enrollment dashboard. I'm going to give the interpreters a minute to switch and pin this interpreter. Let's see. Okay. The dashboard is a collection of reports. This dashboard in particular has not been finalized yet, but we wanted to give you an example of what you can have on your homepage. So the first term that we will use quite often in our guides is the global search bar. There is a search bar at the top of the page that will be present from anywhere in Salesforce, no matter what page you are on. You can use this global search bar to search for consumer or records related to consumers. I'm going to click into the search bar and enter Daisy Duck, just one of the test records that we've been using. And I'm just going to hit enter on my keyboard. So the search will return any records related to the search criteria, and it will be broken down by the type of record. So I can see that I have some referrals, some case records, and other types of records that match my Daisy Duck search criteria. So occasionally in the written guides, there will be instructions to use the global search bar to search. The second term is an app, or an application. We have created apps within Salesforce to streamline the user interface based on what users will be doing in the system. So based on your job roles or where you are potentially. An app is basically a set of tabs. It controls which tabs at the top are available, the order of the tabs, and occasionally it also determines the way an individual record is rendered. So at the top of the screen, I have a grid of 9 dots, and this is called the app launcher. If I clicked on it, a screen will open to offer you options for changing your interface to a different app. I have 6 apps that are available. Not every user is going to have all of these apps, but the apps are Gentry AFCB, Regional Center, Adult Services Billing, Employment, Gentry Mental Health Counselor, and Gentry Nurse. So for most of you, you will be either in the Gentry AFCB app or the Regional Center app. Each process in your testing guides will state at the top which app the user should be in when testing. This is really important so that you have the correct tabs and the correct user interface when you are testing. So for now, I'm going to select the Gentry app. And now my app has been updated to the Gentry app. The third term, which I've already made reference to, is tabs. So there are tabs at the top, which I'll be talking about right now. Occasionally within a record, there will also be tabs on the record page. So the tabs at the top are custom for each app. If you do not have the correct tab available, check to make sure first that you are in the correct app, because the app will determine which tabs are available. Tabs represent what we call objects in Salesforce. All you need to know about that is that each object houses specific types of data or information. So for example, contact records house contact information, incidents contain incident information, etc. So first we are going to click on the Referrals tab. And that brings us to the fourth term, which is a list view. So once I click on this Referrals tab, I now have a list of records on my screen. This is known as a list view. When clicking on a tab, the first time I click on it, the list view will default to recently viewed records, which means that it will be any records that I have accessed recently. For most of you, this will be an empty list since you have never logged in. As you use the system, this list will grow and you will begin to see more and more records. You can change the list view. So once I've clicked on the Referrals tab, at the top left of my screen, I have the name of the list view, which I can see here as recently viewed. If I click on it, I can see additional list views that I have access to. I can select one of these to see a filtered list of referral records. So I'm going to click on Gentry New Referrals. Occasionally, there will be instructions in your testing guides to navigate to different list views. You can also pin a list view. So instead of landing on the recently viewed list view, when I click on the Referrals tab, I can select the pin button or icon next to the list view name that I'm on. So right now I'm on the Gentry New Referrals. If I pin this, now every time I navigate to the Referrals tab, I will see the list view that I pinned. The fifth term that we will refer to is a record. So a record is not the same as a list view from a tab. If I click on this referral, I am now on a referral record page. So a record page contains one set or row of data within the referral object. This is a referral for Laurel, and it has the details about the referral represented in fields on the page. A record is not the same as a tab or a list view, but a record can be represented in a list view. When you are on a record page, it will typically be for one specific consumer, whereas the list view has multiple records usually in a list. In the testing guides, when there are instructions to navigate to a specific record, you can first navigate to the tab like Referrals or Case Records, select a list view, and then select a record from the list view to bring you to the record page. For example, if the testing guide instructs you to navigate to a case record, first I will navigate to the Case Record tab. If there are no records in my list view, I can change the list view to, for example, Gentry Active Case Records. And then I might have some additional records here. I will select a case record. And now I am on a consumer's case record. This record happens to be for Daisy Duck. I can click on the pencil icon next to a field on the record to edit it, or I can click the edit button at the top right of the page to edit this record. If I click on the edit button, it brings up an edit box, and I have different field types that I can edit. So you can see here there are open text fields. There are pick lists where I can select one item from a list of options. There are date fields where I can enter a date. Here are the date fields. And there are lookups. So lookups are essentially links to other records. I'm just going to clear this lookup so that I can demonstrate what happens. If I begin typing, I can instantly see records that match underneath the fields. If I then select the option to show all results, I can see a full list of records that match what I typed and select one. There will also be checkbox fields on record pages. And then there will be some fields that are not editable because they will be updated automatically once you save. So I'm just going to cancel this and not make any changes. Term 6 and term 7 are contacts and case records. So this is an important distinction in ECM. A contact record, I'm going to navigate to a client and contact record for Daisy Duck. A contact record represents an individual person. So it has fields on it that are intrinsic to Daisy Duck or the individual consumer, like her demographics, her contact information, phone number, address, things like that. A case record, on the other hand, represents an enrollment in ECM. So Daisy theoretically could have one or more case records in the system because she left the program and then came back later on. But there will always only be one contact record for Daisy Duck. So if I click on the tab within the contact for program enrollments, I can see a list of case records for her. I'm going to click on the adult services case record. So the case record is kind of like a physical paper file. Within the file, we would have Daisy's enrollment information, maybe her ADRS packet, all of her assessments, evaluations, case notes, any certificates of completions for milestones, everything about her participation in the program. Within the case record page in Salesforce, we also have all of those things. On this record page, we have another set of tabs. This is the second set of tabs, different from the top set of tabs. And that these tabs will group together different kinds of data related to the case record. So we have the details tab, which is just really the record itself, and it has the fields on the record. We have a documentation tab, which contains milestones and documentation records, as well as education history and employment history records. We have a services tab that contains assessments, direct services, class enrollments, and more. We have a plans and notes tab, which contains progress notes and service plans. A history tab, which contains room assignments, interruptions, and the case record history. And then we have a billing tab, which contains records related to ADRS.
So we
So
have a question.
yes,
Okay, the question is, anybody who has access to AID database can modify or alter case record, or will each employee have some certain kind of access levels?
for the most part, that is true. That anybody who has Anybody within the adult services program that has access to the database can modify or alter a case record. However, there are certain records where only certain people will have edit rights, but others will have view only rights. So things for ADRS, for example, the case manager might be able to edit, or the class schedule at Gentry, the case manager will be able to edit. Everyone else will only be able to see or have view only, read only rights. Does that answer the question?
Yes, and Jessica put some additional context in the chat. And Michael said yes, thank you.
Great. Okay. So in the testing guides, we will sometimes instruct you to create new records from within these tabs. So we might say something like navigate to a consumer's case record, which we are currently on Daisy Duck's case record. In the case record tab for plans and notes, so now I navigate to the tab for plans and notes. Under the progress notes related list, click new or select new. And this is how I would create a new progress note. So you notice that I use the term related list, which is what is housed within these case record tabs. It is a specific list of records that are related to the main record, in this case, the case record. Other records, like the contact record, might have different related lists. For the most part, you will be living on using the case record, and so you will be using these tabs to navigate to related lists and creating those related records from the related lists. All right, so we've covered a few different terms that we'll be using throughout the guides. Laurel will now take over and demonstrate the intake and incoming referral process.
Thank you, Kat, for that overview. I am going to share my screen. Okay. So this is going to be a similar demo to what you will experience in the recorded videos that you will have access to after this call. I am in the Gentry app right now, and I will be demonstrating a process for bringing a new consumer through from ADRS referral to intake and looking at their case record. There will be an ADRS integration into this system, which will automatically import contract service requests every night. And there's a tab for contract service requests in the system. Every time a contract service request comes into the system, a referral will be created, which will manage the consumer's interest in the program up until the point when a case record is created. We see a couple of questions coming in. Okay, looks like those are taken care of. To demonstrate this process, I am going to navigate to the Referrals tab. There are 3 different types of referrals in our system. I'm going to select New to demonstrate these 3 types. We have incoming from external referrals, which are used for referrals from external agencies like ADRS or self-referrals. We have internal referrals, which are referrals from one location to another within AIDB. And we have outbound referrals, which are used to record referrals made to external agencies. For contacts with CSRs, incoming from external records will be created with a status of new. That will automatically put them into a list view for each location that says location new referrals. I'm on the Gentry new referrals list view right now, but I could be on the Huntsville new referrals related list and see new referrals for Huntsville. For UAT, we will have, oh, I'll give the interpreter a moment. All right, for this UAT process, we have imported contacts with all of your names, which you will be using for your testing. So as you can see, we have Jerry Test Fleming, Jared Test Edison, and these referrals have all been created because in our test, CSRs have come in for ADRS for these new consumers. I am going to open my Laurel Test Curran referral by clicking on the referral link on the left-hand side. When I open this referral, I can see a lot of information relating to the incoming CSR, as well as other information that the system has created based off the contact record. I'm going to look at this information now. In the information section, there is a link to the contact record, the referral date, the referral status. If they were not admitted, it would show a reason for not admitted. We have a link to the contract service request. We can see that this is an ADRS referral type, and we can see the services that were requested by ADRS. In the next section, AIDB recommended services, we have a number of checkboxes which can be used during the referral stage to indicate the services we expect this consumer to receive at AIDB. Underneath that, we have the referral assignment section, where we can indicate a disability caseload for a consumer, an intake scheduled date, and any living accommodations through AIDB. The next section indicates the incoming referral source, in this case, ADRS. The section below that says referral target, and it shows the referring to site, which is Gentry Campus, the referring to program, which is adult services, and the referring to staff, which is currently blank, but would have a case manager or another staff person responsible for completing intake. Below that is a notes section, which can be edited to add notes. In this case, I'm going to edit the record to progress this referral from the status of new to a new status. I select edit, and my edit box appears. For Gentry and the Freedom Center, the referral status will go from new to admissions team review and potentially admissions hold. For all locations, the referral will progress to pending, either skipping admissions team review or after admissions team review. When pending is selected, we will also scroll down and indicate a disability caseload, an intake scheduled date, any potential living accommodations, and then we will scroll down further to the referral target and indicate a staff person who is responsible for completing intake. In this case, I am assigning intake to myself. We then save the record, and the referral now has a status of pending. To see pending referrals that are ready for intake, we will navigate to another list view. Each location has 2 referral list views, new referrals as well as pending referrals. When I click on Gentry pending referrals, I can see all referrals that are ready for intake. They will have an intake scheduled date and a disability caseload and an intake worker assigned. There is also a list view called My Pending Referrals, which will show for each user all referrals that are assigned to that user. So for all of you case managers, you will be able to go to My Pending Referrals to see the referrals that are ready for intake by you. I can see here that my referral is ready for intake, and so I am going to progress to the intake process. To start intake, I will click on the Intake tab, which is at the top of the screen next to the home page. This takes me to a search page where I can search for the name of the consumer I'm completing intake for by typing into the search box as little as the first name and pressing search. Below the search box is a section called Search Results. This area will list contacts that are related to that name, and if there is an existing case record, you will be able to hover or click on View in order to see if that is an active case record. In this case, there is no active case record for my contact, so I can start a new intake. I do want to note that a consumer can only have one active case record at a time with a primary location assigned. That does not prevent a consumer from receiving services at a secondary or a tertiary location. So for instance, once I am enrolled at Gentry, I can still receive services at Talladega. But if my primary location switches from Gentry to Talladega, my Gentry case record would be closed and a new referral and case record would be created for the Talladega location. At this point, I am going to press Start New Intake with this contact, and it will take me to an intake screen. The intake screen is an ECM form, and this is a little different from other records in the system because it is actually not a record. It is a collection of records. For instance, it has information relating to the contact that we can update, and then it will be reflected on the contact record. It also has information for the case record as well as other related data. We will now walk through this intake screen. In the first section, consumer information, I can see data that was brought over through the CSR from ADRS, including the first name, last name. During the intake process, I could add or adapt this data. I could add a middle name, a nickname, I could adapt this last for the social security number, etc. The second section is intake information, and this will be the basis for the case record. I will select a status of active as well as an intake date of today by pressing this date. My active date will also be today. I will select a referral type, and the next field is primary program site. This is a lookup field like Kat demonstrated earlier, and each case record must be associated with a primary program site. In this case, I'm going to type Gentry, and on the intake form, we must select the magnifying glass, which will bring up a second field with the search results. I have now selected Gentry Campus. I will also select a disability caseload and fill out other pertinent information like does the consumer have reliable internet at home and what are their potential living accommodations. The next section is called consumer demographics. These fields are brought in from the consumer's contact record. The gender is already filled out from ADRS. We can indicate a religious preference, a primary race and ethnicity, a secondary race and ethnicity, a marital status, number of children, a primary and secondary disability, as well as descriptions. The next section also relates to the consumer's contact record and has contact information. Here we can see any phone numbers and address information that has already been added on the contact record. In this case, it has come in from the CSR. We can add, for instance, an email here to complete the record. As well as other contact information. The next section is called technology devices used, and here we can indicate using checkboxes any technology devices that this consumer commonly uses. The next section is for emergency contacts, and in here we can write the name of any emergency contacts that the consumer has, as well as the relationship and contact information. The next section is called incoming referral information. This is pulling in the referral that was used to bring the consumer towards intake. And here we need to change the referral status from pending to services started, indicating that intake has been completed. The next section is consumer history. And this section has fields that can optionally be filled out to illustrate various aspects of a consumer's history. On here, we have a variety of different fields, including have you ever been arrested? Do you have a violent felony? Has there been a court arrangement, etc. We can indicate cultural preferences, transportation, hobbies and volunteer opportunities, natural supports, legal status, limitations to work, and expressed employment interest. We can add all of this by typing in information to these fields. The next section is called intake. Here we can indicate, income. Here we can indicate benefits that a consumer is receiving, as well as the amount, as well as benefits payee, and if they are a SNAP recipient. If they are, we would enter a SNAP amount and SNAP payee. I'm going to check the questions. Oh, it looks like Nikki and Kat have it. The final two sections are a little different from the sections above because here we can add new records. The first section is called case participants. In ECM, case participants represent contacts associated with a consumer's participation in AIDB who either are already in the system or need added to the system. Examples of case participants include a caseworker from an external agency or a parent for somebody who is underage or has a guardian. Here, if we knew they were in the system, we could click Add Existing and look up to that contact. In this case, I will click Add New to add a new contact, which will have a case participant record created, attaching them to that case record. When I select New, I have the opportunity to type in a first name and a last name, as well as a phone and email. There are two buttons here, relationship and case participant. When I select case participant, this unlocks another field called relationship to main client, where we can select the relationship that illustrates this case participation. In this case, I have added my mother and indicated that her relationship to me, the main client, is mother. After adding this information, I must select apply to save this new record to the intake form. The next section, education history, is similar in that you must press add to add a new record of education history for this consumer. When I press add row, the form refreshes and has information to add an institution. This institutions will become added to your database by adding them here. We can also look up information by typing into the window, and it will, a search window will come up. In this case, I'm just adding that they did receive a certification from AIDB in the past. I will add a start date, an end date, and optionally a degree. Once I've filled out this education history, I will press apply. This will save the education history to the record, and I can press add row to add additional records of education history for this consumer. This will not be your only chance to add related records like case participation and education history. There will be more opportunities to do that later. This is just a chance to add information at the intake stage. Once you have filled out the intake form, you can press save and close, which will take you to the newly created case record. The main purpose of the intake form is to create a case record for the consumer. I have just pressed save and close, and the system is processing. The system has now taken me to a newly created case record for this consumer. Kat gave an overview of the case record, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail now. The data I added on the intake form has been saved below in the details section for this case record. We can see the disability caseload, their living accommodations, internet access, technology devices used, income information, case record status, referral information, and key dates. This data can always be edited by pressing the pencils next to each field or pressing the edit button at the top. If you want to navigate back to intake at any time, you can press the edit intake button, which will return you to the intake form and is a convenient place to edit a lot of data about a consumer in one place, including their contact record and their case record. Going to check for a question here.
Yes, we have one. Are there sections for sign language braille proficiency? Sorry.
That is a good question. Let's see here.
I believe those may be assessments, Laurel.
Yeah, there are a lot of different assessments for proficiency in those areas, which we will briefly go into, and the user guides will go into in more detail. The buttons at the top can do a lot of different things on a record. I talked about the edit button and the edit intake button. The face sheet button will take you to an overview of the intake form in a format that can be printed. The record service button will be used to record one-on-one services with a consumer, and that will go, we have videos and user guides which go into more detail about record service. The owner of a case record will be automatically set by as the person who completed intake. If that ever needs to be changed, the change owner button can be selected and a different user of the system can be indicated and will be updated as the owner of the record. For AIDB, the owner will be the case manager who is in charge of the consumer. If a case switches from one caseload to another, that would be a time when the owner would be changed. Nikki, do we have some questions?
We have one that came in from Frederick. Let me pin the video. Can you see the screens for case management? Can we see the screens for case management?
There are a lot of screens for case management. Could the person asking the question clarify what screens you'd like to see?
Frederick also has a question and he would like to sign it.
To sign the intake
The
record?
question.
No, to sign the question.
So you can come off
Okay.
video, Frederick. There, thank you.
Okay, so I've noticed 3 things. With case managers, we have concern of language preference, signing ASL, speaking, SIMCOM. That part is missing, and I've seen that that's very critical with the intake process to know who they are. Secondly, also you notice technology access related to blind technology. Maybe and also a deaf, maybe like they need a smoke detector, they have an alarm clock. So there's that part is missing as well. I'm thinking, make sure I didn't miss anything. But it's just parts of the deaf aspect that are they're missing, or if it's overlooked. Those are my concerns.
Thank you for that feedback. That is exactly why you are here. We would love, as you get deeper into the system, for you to provide that feedback into the UAT spreadsheet. I will highlight that there are language preferences indicated on the client record. I might not have opened each of the fields properly, but there is a language preferences indicated on the client record. There is an assessment specifically for technology devices as well, which I will demonstrate shortly. We've taken those notes down and we'll be following up with you. The other buttons on here include a schedule, which will be visible for Gentry and the Freedom Center. Anyone can click on the schedule button on a consumer's record to see the class schedule of a consumer. Again, that will be described in more detail in the specific videos and written guides. The funding authorization button will be used by case managers, and again, that is gone into more detail in the user guide and video. As with the record that Kat demonstrated, this record has different tabs that contain what we call related data to the case record. A consumer has basic information captured in the details page, but the bulk of the information about a consumer will be captured in these other tabs through related data. On the documentation tab, we can add milestones for a consumer as well as documentation records for a consumer. Documentation records can be captured Documentation records have a number of different types. The AIDB documentation is used to capture general documents and consents, and files can be uploaded and saved to those records. The education history record I created during intake is listed here under the education history related list, and any employment history is added here by selecting new. On the services tab will be service related data. The first list is assessments, and when we select new assessment, we can see a number of different assessments that can be conducted to capture detailed information about a consumer.
We
I'll
have two
pause.
questions.
Yeah.
Great timing. So Bill is asking, can you also make separate intakes based on parameters? Like if they are deaf, they don't need that question for tech. If they are blind, they don't need vehicle information, things like that. And if they are at a regional center, the drop down for living doesn't have anything for the type of home they actually have.
We have only one intake form in your system, and it will be used for all consumers. There are very few required fields on the intake because not all questions apply to all consumers. You will get used to only filling out the fields that apply to your location and your consumers. And in the future, we might narrow it even more. Was there a second question, Nikki?
Yes. The second question, is there a section for data which you want to share with limited people, such as only with your director or executive director?
There is some data that is specific to incidents that will be shared specifically with directors and location managers. There is not currently a place for sharing private information with specific people. Your team has opted for a fairly open security model, which allows all users to see all data. If you have a need for more private information, please communicate that in UAT and describe what you're looking for. We do have the opportunity to add that type of space. Any more questions, Nikki?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. So I think that some of the questions around specific disabilities and detail around those disabilities will be captured in different assessments. For instance, we have a Braille assessment in this list. We have a CASA assessment. We have different evaluation assessments, as well as other types of assessments that you should all be familiar with at this time. The different user guides will go into detail about these, and we encourage you to open these assessments by selecting new assessment, clicking on the assessment you want to open, and selecting next. This will show a new assessment record where you can add your staff name, the assessment date, a status, and then any information about that assessment. In this case, an MBSI raw score and an assessment narrative. That can then be saved, and it will appear in that assessment related list on the services tab of the case record. Is there another question, Nikki?
Yes, and I just replied to it. So the question was, as we grow and gain new types of assessments, will there be an opportunity to add those? And the answer is yes. Great question.
Yes, absolutely. We have been adding new assessments as recently as the last couple weeks as they've come onto our radar. Uh-oh, it looks like the interpreter's video screen is frozen for me. Nikki, is it frozen for you?
No, not on my end. Anyone else?
Okay. I will continue then. So other service data, oh, more questions? Okay, we're good. All right, so underneath assessments on the services tab, if a consumer is enrolled in classes at Gentry or the Freedom Center, we would see class period enrollments here. The regional center application will not have this related list here because it does not apply to those locations. As services are added, which can be added for one-on-one services delivered to consumers, as well as group services, those will be visible here. Job placements are called placements in ECM, and those will be added by employment staff, and those will also be visible on the services related list. I'm sorry, on the services tab. On the plans and notes tab, we have progress notes and service plans. Progress notes can be added here. They can also be added when delivering one-on-one services through the record services button or through group services. By clicking new next to progress note, we can see 3 different types of progress notes: general notes, monthly progress notes, and review and staffing notes. By clicking on one of these note types and selecting next, we can then add a note to a record. I am selecting a date. I'm adding my staff name. I'm indicating a note type. And then I can add notes in the case notes section, which will then be saved as a progress note on the consumer's record in the plans and notes tab. More questions, Nikki? Okay,
Yes,
I
we
see this
do.
one from,
Okay. Yeah.
I see this from Michael. Do we have options between Gentry campus, virtual, online only, and hybrid? A consumer will have a primary location indicated even if they are receiving services through virtual, online only, or hybrid. Those, when delivering services, staff will indicate if that service was received virtually or in person. And all options are possible at all locations. Does that answer your question, Michael? Please let me know if I can add further clarification to that. Okay. Service plans are collections of goals in ECM. There are a number of types of service plans, including class plans, which are used by instructors, behavior plans, and the IPP, which you all might already be familiar with. This is illustrated in more detail in the videos and the user guides, but I will give you a brief preview by selecting next here for the IPP. This brings up a service plan form where we can then select a status of in progress, a start date, an expected end date. We can add our staff name. If this is signed by the client, we can indicate that here. We can add a consumer goal statement, any barriers and strengths to goal achievement, planned services, consumer and staff responsibility, technology accommodations and potential risks, and then plan review information as a plan is reviewed with the client. When we press save, this will create a record under the service plan related list. We can then open that record and see all of our plan information on the left. On the right-hand side, there is a related list embedded in the window for goals. By selecting new, we can add a goal for the consumer. We can indicate a goal area, a goal status, a measurable objective, service technique, start date, target date, eventually an achieved date, and any notes. When we press save, this will add this goal to the right-hand side of the service plan. We can minimize or expand that goal by clicking the downward arrow. We can edit that goal by selecting the pencil on the right-hand side, and we can add any new goals by selecting new. In this way, IPPs and other service plans can be added to a case record. Now, this gives me the chance to demonstrate what we call related records. This service plan is related to the consumer's case record. Related data can always be, you can always see or navigate to the original record that a record is related to by this top leftmost field. In this case, it says case record, and there's a link to navigate back to the case record that the service plan is related to. All records in your system will have the parent record in this placement on the screen. By clicking there, I am taken back to the consumer's case record. So I just demonstrated progress notes and service plans on the case record. In the history tab, we can see data related to a consumer as well. In this Gentry app, we can see room assignments. In all apps, we can see interruptions and incidents, as well as case participations. In the billing tab, we can see the original CSR that came from from ADRS, as well as other billing related data. I do want to note that as the status is changed on a case record, the CSR status and start date will be updated and sent back to ADRS. So case managers will not have to navigate back to the CSR to update it. They will just update enrollment data on the case record itself. I want to talk about locations. I've mentioned that there's a primary program site for each case record, irrespective of if the consumer is receiving in-person or remote services. Here on the top, we can see the parent record of the case record is the client. The next field is primary program site. In this case, that is Gentry Campus. I'm going to click on that Gentry Campus record, and this contains basic information about the Gentry Campus. These records in ECM are called program sites. By clicking on the program site tab in the app, and then selecting all in the list view, we can see all of the locations that AIDB provides services. Every case record will be related to one of these locations, and services are provided at all of these locations. Okay, let's see here. Oh, it looks like we have a question. Oh, never mind. All right, so as I've mentioned, different apps contain different information. For locations that have residential components, there will be room assignments for consumers in the history tab. Room assignments relate to rooms, which are location specific. Those are managed on the program site records. Excuse me. There is a tab specifically for rooms in the application and a list view for different locations. For instance, on the Gentry Rooms list view, we can see the different residential options for students. These residences have various attributes, including buildings, floors, ADA accessibility, room capacity, gender indicators, and room numbers. They will have an availability status based off of any active room assignments. When on a room, the room assignments can be viewed from the room assignment tab. For instance, here is a room assignment for Daisy Duck with a status of moved out, meaning that there is a bed available in this room currently. Daisy's room assignment could be viewed on her case record as well. So that is a feature that will just be in the Gentry and Freedom Center app, but not in the Regional Center app. All right, that concludes my demonstration of taking a consumer from ADRS, CSR, and referral through the intake form and then to a case record. Each of you will have different processes to test from here that we are not going into detail today around service provision, evaluation, group services, class attendance, scheduling, etc. We do have some extra time, and I would be happy to show some other areas of the system if you are interested in seeing other features. I will also ask Joel and Jessica and Susie and Jared and Doug if there are any features you think would be useful to demonstrate at this stage.
Laurel, this is Jessica.
Hi.
Hey, as usual, you, Nikki, and Kat have done a fabulous job. I was just going to make a quick comment too for our regional center friends out there who've already provided excellent feedback. I did not mention that Tony Pileggi has been involved in this process from day one also. He's not been in each of our core meetings, if you will, but he's been a great advocate for the regional centers to ensure this is exactly what you all need as well, and interface as well with, of course, Gentry and the Freedom Center. So we really look forward to your feedback, and Fred and Michael already appreciate Ennis, the feedback just on this call. And I'm extremely eager and excited to hear from the rest of you and see what you think, especially as this compares to what we're used to, Grin. So just really appreciate, Nikki, you, Laurel, and Kat for your time today. And I will open it up to the floor to see what else the others have to say.
While you all are thinking about other things you'd like to see, there is one other thing that I'd like to show you, which is some other views of case records. When selecting the case record tab, list views can then be selected for each location showing active case records. For instance, I can select Gentry active case records and see all of the case records that are currently active at Gentry. As with referrals, there is a My Case Record tab or list view in which I can see the case records that I own. All case managers can use this related list to view their caseload.
And we have 2 questions. I think we have Ennis. He says he has an app titled Power of Us.
All right, so Ennis, that can happen when you first log into the system. And what I'll ask you to do is in your browser, if you can remove anything after force.com, remove that, and then press enter.
Laurel, I think he's referring to the app launcher within the app launcher, the 9 dots, there is a Power of Us app option. On our, it will look different for our various users because we have customized the apps available. I do not think that it is possible to remove the Power of Us app. It just comes with Salesforce. But the Power of Us is an online hub of all Salesforce users. There are different user groups by region, by company type. So for example, nonprofits. There is also a user group for users with disabilities or users using screen readers. So it might be something that you want to explore, but for the purposes of testing, you do not need to navigate to that app. It is just there for you to use if you want to in the future.
For the purposes of your testing and work, you will want to be either in the Gentry Freedom Center app or the Regional Center app, or potentially the Employment app.
Okay. And I think Frederick has a question, if you want to come on camera and sign.
I have a question, and I'm looking at the case management in general for the services. One thing I noticed that is missing related to two things. Interpreter services. So we rely heavily on reporting interpreter services for using our staff as well. So that's one thing that's missing. So also CSRs have interpreter services as well. So is that ongoing? Is that something we're going to add?
I have not gone into detail. I have not gone into service delivery at all in this demo. That will be something that is covered in the individual UAT guides that you will have access to after this call. No services are added through fields. Services are added by pressing the record service button. And we have a variety of different types of services here that can be added. And those I'd like you to familiarize yourself with in the walkthrough guides. On the CSRs, which I can show you one, there are a number of different services that ADRS can select, and I don't see interpreter services on this list that we got from ADRS. However, we've noticed that ADRS puts a lot of their service information into the service description and the service request comments. So that is something we will follow up on with you and with Jessica and with ADRS to see how they exactly communicate interpreter services.
Okay, great. And it looks like Susie answered Diane's question regarding printing capabilities.
I would like to just show one thing,
Okay.
Nikki, around that. So some demographic information is on the intake form. And as I mentioned, the face sheet can be selected to show a printable version of the intake form, which has some demographic fields on it. This is a printable version that can be added to a paper file.
Great. And then our next question is, Dante is curious about the different type of reports that can be ran.
That is a great question. There are a lot of reporting capabilities in Salesforce, and the short answer is that you can report on any type of data in the system. We have a list of reports that will be created for you by us Those are not ready yet and will be ready for viewing in January. So as it pertains to this testing, reports are not included, but they will be coming. Back to interpreter services for a moment. I can show you the service entry form that will be used for recording interpreter services. By selecting record service and then adjustment and next, you are taken to what is called a service entry form. Here you select the date and time this service was delivered, the location it was associated with, and then there are a number of different types of service that can be offered in one form. You do not need to indicate all of these services in one form. There might just be one service. So for instance, interpreter units of service is listed here. For AIDB, UOS stands for units of service, and 1 unit equals 1 15-minute increment. So here you could indicate 2 15-minute increments of service. You could indicate that this was off-site distance learning or at a client home or a program office, a contact method, and then client attendance of attended. You could scroll down and add a case note, as well as the amount of staff time spent delivering this service by entering your staff name. And adding the number of 15-minute increments that it took to deliver this service. When this is saved, it adds a service record to this consumer, which can be seen in the Services tab here under Service Entry. And then also you can see the direct service was created from the service entry form for interpreter services. So again, there are a lot of different types of services that AIDB provides, and those will be explored further in the other training materials we're providing.
So this one seems, we have another question, but this one seems relevant to maybe what you just showed. So I'm gonna ask that one first. How do we add another staff to a case to do intermittent services, such as our driver for transportation or job developer for job development?
Those staff members can always come to a case record and add services. There is nothing structurally that you have to do to give them access to provide services to a case record.
And you can see on the services tab in the related list, you will always be able to see who created that service. So for example, if there's a job developer providing a job service, you will be able to see that James or ISIS, for example, created that service. And they will also be creating placements as well.
Thank you, Kat.
Okay, and then there was another question earlier around the ability to do a print. Oh, can they run caseloads by demographics, counties, disabilities, dates of service, etc.? So do a slice and dice around caseload.
Yes, you will be able to create reports based off of different caseloads and different demographics, location information, etc. I'm looking through the questions here.
And I think we got to them all. I know Diane and Susie were having a conversation around employment. So I don't know if you wanted to touch on that a bit or focus on.
I can briefly navigate to the employment application, which has slightly different tabs at the top that are specified for employment services, for instance, placements and organizations. Placements will be used to record jobs that consumers receive and will be related to organizations. And you can also access case records and see employment related information on those case records. It is worth pointing out that all apps have access to all data. So just because you're in the employment app does not mean that you wouldn't be able to see case records. You can see all case records in the employment app and add employment information on that app. The employment app has a placements tab on the case record view in order to easily add employment data.
This is Kat. I just wanted to mention that in the testing guides, there will be a general overview of instructions to do these different processes, right? How do I add a placement if I'm an employment or a job developer? If I'm the nurse, how do I add a nurse note? If I'm a case manager, how do I record a service? So please do use those testing guides and videos to follow the instructions. And then when you are doing the process in Salesforce in ECM, you can begin to explore each individual field and each available button, but all sort of within that framework of the instructions, right? So the instructions are really meant to guide you through a specific process, and we want you to do your testing within that framework, so as not to cause confusion by just randomly clicking or navigating to places that may not be part of a process or may be used for a different process, and getting lost. So we do hope that you can rely on those guides and the videos to help you with your testing.
I do want to address, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think there are additional questions.
Yeah, I see a question from Ennis. For services provided by Gentry employees stationed at regional centers, will the site be listed as Gentry or the respective regional center? So on a case record, the site will be the primary program site, but services can be recorded at any location by selecting record service. And in the case, let's just look at the AT one. The location that that service was provided can be indicated here in the program site. So if this consumer, their primary location is Gentry, but they received a service at Talladega, that could be indicated here as their location of service. As far as attendance goes, Susie, that is a whole bag of worms. Let's go back to the Gentry app. I will briefly show you. There is a tab for class attendance, which is where instructors will take attendance. I will also show you before class attendance is taken, a consumer will be scheduled. This is one place where different staff have different abilities on the scheduling feature. All staff can view a consumer's schedule, but only case managers can schedule a consumer in different classes. The videos and written guides go into detail about how case managers schedule consumers and how instructors take attendance for consumers using these two features. Susie, Joel, are there any And Doug, are there any features you would like us to show that we have not showed yet?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say, like Jessica, I think you guys have done an amazing job. I think really at this point, we just need to let people get in there. I think the questions will generate themselves if we just dive in.
Okay. I think you're right. Let's see if some more questions have come in. With our remaining time, I'm going to give a quick overview of the training materials so that you are clear on what the different options are. Kat, could you please, oh, here, I found it. Okay. I've just changed my screen to the document you will have access to, and I will review this now. Each row highlights a specific functional area where we would like you to practice. Today, I went over general intake, including a system overview, new incoming referrals, and intake. There is a written guide in here that goes into detail about the steps to practice and test those processes. There will be a video linked here of this call after we upload it to YouTube, and it will have captions. The next one is a case manager specific testing guide and video. It covers billing setup after intake, documentation creation, class scheduling, outbound referrals, monthly progress notes and monthly progress reports, individual services, and group services. The residential video covers residential assignments and documentation related to residential intake, and has also a testing guide and a video illustrating those processes. The next one covers incidents and interruptions, and it also has a testing guide written and a video guide. For medical staff, there is nurse-specific and mental health counselor-specific processes covered in the medical testing guide and the medical video. The next one is employment. Education and employment history and placements are covered in this testing guide and video. For outreach, assessments, individual services, partner events, milestones, equipment management, and group services are covered in the outreach testing guide and outreach video. And for instructors, class attendance, viewing schedules, monthly progress notes, class plans, and milestones are covered in that testing guide and video. And for evaluators, the evaluation processes and assessments, the evaluation report, and individual services are covered in that testing guide and that video. I think that these specific testing guides and videos will cover the other processes you all are interested in exquisite detail and will guide you in your testing. I recommend you watch the ones that are core and read the ones that are core to your business processes, but you also can watch and practice the processes related to other areas that you are interested in or curious about to see how all the data relates to itself. Any questions about these guides? Is there anything you don't see here or you haven't heard me mention that you're curious about? Okay, let's see.
So Laurel, this is Jessica.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we're at the point where you could give a reminder on when the feedback needs to be completed, when the testing needs to be completed on our end?
Yeah, absolutely. We are hoping for all of your feedback to be entered into the spreadsheet by end of day next Wednesday, which is December 9th, which will then give Susie and Jared and Doug and Joel a day to process that, deduplicate it, and get it to us. We will then be implementing changes over the following weeks based off your feedback and clarifying any follow-up questions we have with you. Joel, would you like to talk to the internal process leads and at all and just talk about how people can ask usability questions if they encounter problems?
Sure. And like I say, we're gonna, I guess each team member will email their group, and we'll send the links out. We want to get there's lots of good questions coming here, and lots of gaps, and that's what this process is for. We want to get this into the spreadsheet. They won't have access to y'all after this, but the rest of us will be available, and they'll touch base with Susie or Jared or me or whoever, and if we don't know the answer, of course we're going to refer to y'all. But the main thing is we want to kick the tires on this as hard as we can to give y'all as good a feedback as we can, and complete this product. I'm ready to get going on it. And like I say, I know there's going to be a lot of questions, but the main thing is to make sure we follow procedures, we use the spreadsheet, put our information, and try to be not overly verbose, but definitely clear and concise on our feedback. This is something we're going to live with for a long time, guys. So we want to take our time and do this right. And there's definitely gaps, and that's what we're doing. We're going to fill in those holes, and get this as complete as possible and as quickly as possible. But there'll be a lot of time over this next week that we're going to just have to communicate with each other as much as possible. So definitely do not hesitate to be using it and asking questions and filling out. And like Susie popped up, it needs to go in that spreadsheet. That is how we communicate. If you call or email us, and it will, it doesn't really exist unless it's exactly this spreadsheet right here. This is where it's law. If you call me up and say, I got a great idea, that'd be great if I can remember to do this, but I'm not making any promises. The thing we need from y'all is to put your feedback in here so it can get prioritized and worked on, and checked off as we go. But
And
I don't have,
Joel,
yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, just real quick. The sheet that he's referring to is entitled AIDB UAT Feedback Sheet, December 2020, and it's a Google Docs. Okay, go ahead.
And this will be sent out along with the link to the testing materials by each of your team leads today.
Yes.
I do just want to quickly mention, so when you open one of the written testing guides, it will also be a Google document, and it will have a number of different instructions to make sure you are in the right environment. And then it will talk you through every step, every task to complete the process, as well as the expected outcome. If there are any blockers to completing this task, or if you don't have the expected outcome, that is something to raise to your team lead immediately so that we can address it right away. So if you are unable to complete these tasks or process the expected outcomes, do let us know right away. And that can be in the form of an email instead of going on to the spreadsheet.
This is Kat. For the team leads for Susie, Jared, and Joel, we will ask that you do a little bit of triage before sending those along to us. If there's an error message or if a user happens to be in the wrong app, please do try to address those with the user directly so that they know that they're in the right place before reaching out to us. At this point, we really only want to be addressing any sort of major blockers, as Laurel said.
I was just going to give out your cell phone if that was okay.
Sounds good, Joel. There is a question in here for.
Oh, I was answering it on mute.
Oh,
sorry. Michael, in this sandbox, we've imported a contact by each of your names, and you will access them by looking at your location's new referrals, and you will see your test contact, which you will be using for all of your test work.
You can also, this is Kat, you can also search in the global search bar for your first name followed by the word test, and you should find the contact and referral that way.
Okay, if there aren't any more questions, we will give you back the last 10 minutes of the hour here and just thank you again for your time, your curiosity, and your involvement in this process. This is a really important phase for us, and we really look forward to all of your feedback as you get to know the system. You will be our champions in January as the rest of your staff become familiar with the system. So we're very, very happy to have you participating.
And again, Laurel, Nikki, Kat, fantastic job. I really enjoyed every bit of this. Y'all have been fantastic. And I'm glad my AIDB family finally got to meet y'all.
Well, it's our
Thank you,
pleasure
Joel.
too. And thank you to our interpreters, Sarah, Robin, and Amanda. Thank you so much. You have done a great job, and we appreciate the AIDB team. You have done a great job and been great. Okay. That ends our meeting for today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a
Thank
great
Thank
one.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.